last drink of water. Let's turn this fan down. Oh man, I'm gonna have to have like a high APM to do these sounds right. Which button is it? It's that one. Okay. Oh god. Today's episode is brought to you by
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. How are you doing today?
I am like, I don't know if I'm on another level or if I've dropped down 5 levels, but I was like super loopy beforehand. I'm like overtired, but also overstimulated on coffee. It's great. I mean, you know, NYXL just, you know, kept it consistent. Nothing like a good consistent team in the playoffs. Their playoff performance is rather consistent at this point.
I mean, you're telling me I'm the one that picked them to lose.
True. I mean, but what we can say is history was made. But I'm sure we'll get to that sooner rather than later. Let's talk a little bit about some High Noon Productions housekeeping stuff. Of course, all of our shows are on Spotify. We've been saying it over and over. Make sure that if you're on Spotify and you like to listen to podcasts on Spotify, or if you don't, check it out. It's a good platform for that. Hashtag not an ad. But all of our shows are on Spotify, so make sure you search High Noon Productions on Spotify. You can find all the shows there. Speaking of the High Noon Productions, Round the Payload coming back on Wednesday, and we may or may not be having one of the or both of the people talking on this show right now on the show.
Snap.
We definitely are. I mean, of course,
It's gonna be fun.
I'll be there hosting. Deathblow making his triumphant return for it's been a lot of episodes. I don't even remember the last one you were on. I feel like
It's been a little
I
while.
feel like Brigitte wasn't even out, but
Oh, stop.
it's been a while. You need to get that
Stage or two.
You got to get that double crown. That double crown. That will be coming. That will be recorded on later this week, Wednesday, I believe, maybe Thursday. I don't remember. We've also got Black Watch Report, of course, for your Tier 2 Overwatch. Always new episodes every week, and they've also got another one coming up tomorrow, which is going to be Tuesday in podcast land. Make sure you check them out. They've got their own feed and everything there. And Foul Play last week did a nice little live draft with our new host Tepoyama, Heebie-Jeebie, and A-Smith. They did fast food restaurants, favorite fast food restaurants, and let me tell you, I saw their lists, and all I'll say is that there was no me in that group. There was no clear loser in that group.
It's really weird to look at the draft results when like we didn't participate in them, and like I'm then forced, like, instead of just having one where I'm like, nope, this is correct.
Yeah.
It's not possible to make a better list than this given the circumstances, and you know, it's just it made me a little sad to not be doing Foul Play anymore, to have a draft go on. Like,
I know, those are very fun.
Yeah.
But
they did a great job with it, though. Voting will be closed on it by the time this hits podcast feeds. But if you do in the future listen and you catch them a little earlier, you guys will be able to vote on who you think had the best draft.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as much fun voting on them and debating with people on Twitter and in Discord and things like that as it is to do them. So get active in those. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, the interweek ramblings and arguments that happen in the Discord channel are like at least 50% of the fun in doing the draft.
The 90s TV show draft still comes up to me, like when I'm playing with like Bob and stuff like it'll still randomly rear its ugly head, and we'll be yelling at each other about TV shows from multiple decades ago.
Yep. I just like, man, I know I could tell A-Smith was trying to win my heart over with that Taco Bell pick, but I ended up picking the one that had the most restaurants that I had been to in the last 6 months.
That makes sense because Taco Bell would get marks against it for serving Baja Blast, which is disgusting. So
Delicious Baja Blast. I did go to Taco Bell after listening to.
Do we need to say not an ad when I call something disgusting, or are we in the clear on that?
No, you can talk smack. You just can't. You can't be. You don't actually ever have to say not an ad. You have to say something is an ad when it is. You don't have to say it's not an ad when it isn't.
Right.
At least I don't know. Or can we talk crap about something, and then blackmail the company into paying us to stop talking crap about them?
Well, if we can do that, we should do it immediately.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll certainly let you know if any of that ever happens. But let's talk a little bit about what we did this week. Death, anything fun and exciting for you?
Other than just watching the playoffs, I played a bit more Overwatch than I normally do this week, which was a lot of fun. Great to kind of come back and get in the swing of things a little bit. Man, my Wrecking Ball has a lot of work to do, but my Orisa felt pretty good. The hero's just in a really good spot right now, so it's a lot of fun to kind of. I've really never gotten the chance to like extensively play Orisa. It's always just a map here or there, like. You know, you want to run a specific strategy on a specific map, right, and now it's basically attack, defense, king of the hill. It doesn't matter. Orisa's viable. You can just play it. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. I got a couple 6-stack groups going.
Nice.
Yeah. Other than that, not a whole heck of a lot.
It's the beauty of playing in that gold plat realm is that everything's viable on every map if you just put your mind to it.
I wouldn't know about that.
It's all that I know.
Realm in a long time, Blevins.
It's all that I know. And you can play whatever you want, whenever you want, and you just mute the chat and no one complains.
Crazy.
It's so good. But yeah, I did like normie stuff this last weekend. It was
gross.
Yeah, it was gross. But I did play some Smash with my roommate. Part of the reason why I'm like super tired now, I just stayed up way too late playing Smash Bros.
No such thing. Reject the premise.
True. I mean, I just need really the problem isn't that I stayed up so late. The problem is that my body's not used to staying up that late and being on this little sleep. I just need to
you didn't stay up too late to play Smash Brothers. You woke up too early to work, is what you did. There's a very big difference.
True. That you're not wrong. But yeah, well, I'm gonna need to fix something, and it's certainly not going to be play less Smash Bros. But let's move on here and let's talk about some news. Got it. So we've got Ellie Vogt and Lulsish have joined the Washington Justice. Washington Justice making moves at the final hour. Do we know anything about these players? Death. I know they're from the Envy team, right?
Yeah, I believe they're from the Academy team. You know, kind of in the Dallas organization, right? They came up through there. So great to see them make moves. Honestly, these are the moves that they should have made a while ago in order to make themselves a little more competitively viable as a team and give them more of an opportunity to really do something in the season playoff race, which I think they're basically out of at this point. So it's going to be a little tough for them. But yeah, this is the tank line for Team Envy, who was undefeated in contenders so far this season in their group. So, these are players that are thought to be among the best, tank duo in the contenders talent pool, regardless of region, Korean, North American. Mm-hmm. So I think these are players with a really decent opportunity. I believe they're both Swedes. Yep. So yeah, if you're a European region fan, these are where these guys come from. So it'll be, I think these guys have even been teammates for a really long time. If we look even beyond Envy, Angry Titans, VV's Adventure, at least through Angry Titans time, it looks like these guys have been together for a while. So it'll be nice to capitalize on some of that synergy they bring from playing with each other for an extended period of time. But yeah, they're looking to play spoilers in stage 4. And these are the 2 roster spots that I think needed to be addressed the most. We've talked a lot about how Corey and Ado and even Stratus, I think, has gotten some time on stage, looked pretty good. So the DPS core looks decent. I mean, maybe not on Brig, sorry, but at the end of the day, he's been signed to play DPS. If we're heading into the Rollock scenario, then Arc and Sleepy came in to shore up the support line. This was what was left, and this is what was needed. So it'll be very curious to see what this does for them. Obviously, these are contenders call-ups, so their success in contenders doesn't guarantee success in Overwatch League, but they've certainly earned the right to have this opportunity, and we'll see what they can do with it. And I think it gives the Washington Justice a puncher's chance to significantly improve. And they're just a couple weeks behind Florida Mayhem to try to climb out of the basement here, and by adding some players.
Right. I mean, before stage 3, we were talking about LA Valiant really being down and out. They had the 0-7 stage. Of course, we were rudely awakened to the fact that doesn't really matter for you. You can really be in and you can make a run at it. And I expect Washington Justice to do no less than that. We may also be able to cure them of the no Janus, no win, or no, I don't remember what it is. No Janus, no win. No Janus.
It was 3 no's.
Yeah, no Janus, no win. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they're making improvements. I think just based on the feel of how these teams that are not necessarily in the end of season playoff contention, they still are going to be making a run for it. There's no reason to think that they're not going to. And I mean, as we've seen in this stage and this stage playoffs, especially, really almost anything can happen in these Overwatch League games. And sports magic is always a thing. And making big moves like this is definitely going to be good for the Washington Justice. So Washington fans may be able to breathe not a sigh of relief, but maybe a breath of fresh air. They'll be able to breathe in. One quick note here that isn't directly related to Overwatch League, but I'm going to report on it because I don't care. Tvik has been picked up by a contenders team, Revival. Had Pluppy lives. I don't care. There's no way. I know that you purposely didn't put it on the notes. You can't avoid it. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna find it.
I don't steal topics from Blackwatch Report, but nonetheless.
Hey, you know what? I've been a Pluppy fan since before those guys even knew what Overwatch League was, or Overwatch was.
You certainly have been, and we even talked a little bit about after he left Florida how it would have felt really like I wasn't sure he was going to do this, right? I didn't know. It was hard to kind of envision like one of the OG top players in the entire game having to kind of swallow his pride a little bit and head back down into the path to pro and try to work his way back up. So it felt like he might have, kind of been transitioning away from Overwatch. Right. I'm thrilled that he's sticking around. It might take him a little bit, but I think he can be an asset to an organization, maybe as a two-way player, maybe it's just, basically in any capacity. I mean, the guy has been involved in the game. He's clearly got the mind for it. He's been around for a long time. Got away from him a little bit, but man, the redemption story, if he comes back and is at the top of his game, would be a blast. So I'll certainly be rooting for him.
Story when he gets picked up by Toronto in season 3. What? That's my hope. That's what I want to have happen. But yeah, no, I also had the same, not necessarily fear, because I just want the best for Tvik. If Overwatch is not that, then that's fine. That's fine with me. I know he's going to be doing something in the gaming space. Obviously, he came from, I believe it's the Quake world. That's kind of where he went, and we saw players that were on successful teams back in the day. Team Liquid, the old Team Liquid, Rafa, when Overwatch League came out, just went to, or maybe it might have even been a little bit before Overwatch League, but like when push came to shove, he went back to Quake and didn't continue playing Overwatch, and he had a relatively successful run in Overwatch, when he was in. On a successful team as well. So, I could see a player like Tvik going the streaming route. Obviously he's not a gigantic streamer. He's not an XQC, type of streamer where XQC kind of exploded. He's getting like, 20K viewers or something crazy like that. And XQC is blown up, but Tvik is not that level of streamer, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if he didn't, jump immediately onto a contenders team. But also, if he's gonna do it, you kind of gotta, you kind of gotta move quickly. You can't be out of the game for too long and expect to come back, especially when you're going when your career path, at least at that point, took a turn downwards rather than upwards. So I'm super happy to see him on a team and see him still playing. Hopefully, I mean, I've got my fingers crossed to see him back in the Overwatch League at some point, and hopefully he's really given a shot to perform. But we will move on and talk about more actual Overwatch League news. And the Boston Uprising have signed Stellar. Yes, that's right. You heard it right. Stellar, the player who, and I'm using the biggest air quotes ever here, retired from the Overwatch League, from the Toronto Defiant, and has now just been signed to the Boston Uprising. Death, I know you've got opinions on this. We talked about it even as soon as last week. We talked about transparency in the Overwatch League and how, we don't really have it. So, you know what? I think, we're starting to tally up these strikes. Wait, you want to go off here?
I mean, only to an extent. It's par for the course for the Overwatch League at this point for them to just not give you any information and expect you to just be okay with it. And plenty of people are, and I'm dead inside about that. But that's a different conversation as well. It's just a matter of nothing means anything, right? We make these announcements, and it doesn't actually mean anything until the player shows up and until all it's a mess, to be perfectly honest with you, because Stellar announced his retirement from Toronto. And retirement usually means you're done playing the game. And reading through the tea leaves here a little bit and using some reports from just various people, basically, he told Toronto he wanted to come back. Toronto said, we're all good, we're full up, and they then sold his contract to Boston. But we don't know for sure that that's what happened. We actually have no idea. It was just announced like he was picked up and signed. And I think fans, either the dedicated ones like us and like you guys that listen to podcasts and everything like that, as well as the casual fans that don't know what this means, they just like follow the team's Twitter accounts and don't absorb a bunch of other content. I think everybody deserves to know what's going on with their teams, with the rosters for the teams that they root for. It's honestly incredibly frustrating as a fan, as a consumer, somebody that buys merchandise, that buys tickets to events, that travels to these events, to not get the most basic level one of transparency with what's going on. When you say somebody's retired, I no longer know what that means. It's basically completely up in the air because you haven't defined it. You haven't told us what it means. What does it mean when somebody gets signed to a two-way contract? Oh, that would be phenomenal to know. And it irks me a little bit, and it's not fair to anybody, but it irks me a little bit that it's Boston here, right? Like, it's this player retired from a team I root for to go to a team I despise. And a team that's owned by somebody that's known for shady practices in their sporting endeavors. So it's just mind-boggling to me that people are okay with the fact that we don't know how long contracts are. We don't know, what am I supposed to go out and buy a jersey for one of these players? How long are they going to be with this team? And listen, if you're signing them to a 1-year contract and I like them, I might buy the jersey anyways. It's not like you're not going to sell jerseys for players that are picked up for half a season, right? If I'm a Lynxer fan, which I am, right, and he's not playing for Houston anymore, and he ends up being traded to Toronto in the midseason, you think I'm not going to want? But it's purposefully serving my point. I'm going to want that Lynxer jersey on the Toronto team, right? I'm the person that's going to get hit by that and want it anyways, even if I suspect it's only for the season. Just being a fan of the player and being a fan of the team, if it's short, that's fine. I want to have something to commemorate when the two things lined up. It's stuff like that's still going to happen. You're still going to get jersey sales, and it's really, really annoying to me that I don't know when a team I root for signs somebody to a 2-way contract. I don't know what impact they'll have on the roster whatsoever. I don't know how long players I don't like that are on my team are under contract for. So how am I supposed to evaluate the general manager of the team I root for? This is by the way, not even scratching the surface of my frustration as a content creator that's trying to distill all this information and give it to you guys. We go way out of our way to only tell you guys things that are confirmed and actually true, and there's very few exceptions to that, like the Rolox situation. It's just been confirmed by enough secondary sources that we're very confident it's going to happen. But I don't even like telling you guys that that's confirmed or even talking too much about that, because I just don't know. And all these things that come out and surprise me, like, what does retirement mean? What does a two-way contract mean? Oh, don't worry, you can just get the rule book rewritten in the middle of the stage if you think you need that person to tank for you or something. Like, it's just all really, really frustrating. And there's no sports league that operates like this. And I want Overwatch League to succeed as much as I want the NFL to succeed, as much as I want the NHL to succeed, more than I want the NBA to succeed, more than I want, so many leagues to succeed.
Right.
It's very, very high on my list. And this is, to me, so level one. Like, I don't know the legality of it. I know we talked to Ryan Morrison and he said there was legality issues with disclosing player salaries and then not having a players union, but I'm sorry. None of them do it. So if that's what needs to be done, that's fine. Show me steps being made to get players union. I'm not saying it has to be here right now. I'm not saying, and for what it's worth too, I don't blame the teams for this at all. Because if I run a team and you're not making me divulge the information, I'm not divulging the information. Why would I give my competitors any insight into how I'm running my team, what I'm doing, to use it against me, to mirror it if I'm successful or anything like that? I mean, they could certainly go out of their way to go above and beyond and to give us things that maybe the rest of the teams aren't. And I would certainly love that about a team, but I'm not, like I said, if I was running the Houston Outlaws, I'm not making that information public until everybody starts making that information public, or I'm forced to.
Well, here's how I think about it. On the one hand, you don't want to give a competitive advantage to your competitors in one sense, but also you're in another sense, all of the teams and Blizzard are all business partners, right? They're all in this agreement. Obviously, they make their own money in some capacities, but at least as it stands now, they're all business partners. All of them benefit from the league. The rising tides raises all ships, or whatever the mantra is. Something like that, right? Everybody.
Not saving you on that one. You should know that one.
That's what it is. I'm pretty sure it is.
It's pretty close.
It's close enough. I think they should want to divulge some of this information. Now, they don't necessarily need to, define exactly what retirement is. They don't need to. But here's the thing. Only part of their job, and I would argue, at least in some of the conversations I've had, only a small portion of the team, the organization, not the players, job is to win the game and to have a competitive and to have a great team. That is one method to building the brand and to making money and making the league more successful, is having a good team. That's one of the aspects. The other is like building a connection with the fans and building the fan base and making people feel like they're part of something and creating content. Right now, how many of the teams actually have content that's being made? That's something. Like a handful of them have some one-off shows. I know Houston was doing something like a
Houston
show
still
with
does a
ZP.
weekly show.
Yeah, there's a couple that do something, but is it anything out of the ordinary? No, they're just team specific shows, which is fine. But how do you if I'll use a team that I'm not attached to. If I'm LA Gladiators, for instance, and right now we know Surefour is one of the most popular players on their team, one of the most popular players in the league. Surefour is a wanted quantity in the Overwatch League. If I'm the LA Gladiators and I know Surefour's year one contract is coming to an end soon, and if I think of it this way, there's a difference between saying Surefour or not saying anything and just going into the next season and Surefour still on the team. Okay, I guess they renewed his contract. Okay, great, we still have Surefour. And a tweet and a whole thing and an interview with Surefour that says Surefour's been signed to a 4-year. I mean, maybe they don't do the money yet, whatever. But we've signed Surefour for a multi-year contract. great. You build a little bit more. There's buzz around it. I mean, you take a look just now in the NBA offseason, there's a huge trade with Russell Westbrook and CP3 and some draft picks and stuff. Like, there's a huge trade, and like right now, NBA not really talking about anything. Like, I follow the NBA like subreddit and that stuff. It's all old clips of like Michael Jordan and Shaq and Kobe. Like, they like literally just talk about old stuff from like the 90s and early 2000s. But this trade happens, and it's like bigger than most of the stuff that happens during the season. Like, the NBA is at such a, not necessarily parity, but like even if the dead last team beats the best team in the league, it's really not that big of a story because sports has seen this happen. Sports magic, matchups, all that stuff. It's not that big of a deal. In Overwatch League, it kind of is. But like this trade, huge trade, even like renewing a contract with like LeBron James or a top player. Hey, we signed a 10-year, $25 million contract. This player is a franchise player. We are building our franchise around this player. As a fan, you know, hey, this is going to be the face of our franchise. This is who's going to be leading us to championships. This is going to be who we're going to put on. We are going to be on the back of this player for this many years. You can have faith in that, and we trust you as a fan to be on board with that. That builds a connection. That is content in and of itself, even though it's not creating anything new. It's just showing what you're already doing. Like, the teams have the opportunity to do that. They can gain something from that, and they can really create a connection with the fans and build that fan base, which not a lot of, like, some of the teams have the endemic fan bases, but like, you know, we are more closely connected to the sports realm, at least you are, and a lot more than most Overwatch League fans. How are we expecting the same types of people who are complaining about Overwatch being on ESPN and ABC to have any sort of respect for the Overwatch League when they pull shenanigans like this? Yeah. I think it's a missed opportunity from the league and from the teams themselves as well.
Yeah. Last I checked, I'm pretty squarely in a market they're trying to make their way into and to get the attention of right now. And that's slightly older than your average Twitch viewer and traditional sports fan. And I think that's really something that the Overwatch League is targeting. And I don't see how they're going to keep those people around. Listen, they're going to be able to pique their interest. I do believe in the product. I believe in the teams, the players. A lot about what the Overwatch League is doing and has done has been phenomenal, and people will be drawn to that. But if you want credibility as a tier 1 sports league, if you want to make your way in to be in competition with the big four, and I'm sure that's everybody's goal, even our new commissioner who comes from the sports world, then you need to put out the rule book. I can go out there and find the intricate details of the revenue sharing system for all of the leagues. Nobody's asking for that information. I just want to know how long the players I root for are under contract. And to get back to the team conversation a little bit, you kind of touched on it. You're passing up the chance to get good publicity and to get credit for the work you do as a general manager, as an organization, to attract and to sign and to maintain free agents. Sports teams live and die on their ability to sign and keep free agents when they come, when their contracts come up, when they're part of their team. I mean, it's a huge deal. And we're going into a year, and I think people are hopefully going to wake up and really start banging this drum when they realize how much roster turnover there's about to be after this season going into the next season.
And how exciting that is.
And it's great, and it will be a lot of fun. But man, I mean, you'll talk to fans of teams right now, and you use the Gladiators and Surefour example. There are people that root for the Gladiators that would laugh in your face if you suggested that Surefour might not be on the team next year. And it is as likely to happen as it is to not happen at this point, right? Absolutely. You just don't know what's going on in Surefour's head. He has just as much power over, in this conversation as the organization does. And that's the same with everybody, because everybody from the initial signings was on a 1 year with the option to extend deal, and that means they're all fully expired. They're all unrestricted free agents as of the end of this year, unless they've already re-signed. And if teams have re-signed players and not announced it, I don't know what they're doing, because they're missing out on the chance to just make their fans fall even deeper in love with them and all these things. So I'm going to go out on a limb and assume nobody's re-signed anybody yet, because why would you? You haven't had to, right? That's kind of the attitude I think they're all taking.
And you know what? if they have signed them and no one made any and no one announced that or anything, fire the people who are in charge of that. And we've got 2 people right here who know what they're talking about. I'm saying it right here. I'm calling them out. I'm calling them out right now. It's such a missed opportunity if that's the case. I mean, the games, okay, what makes, we've talked about this for months and months and months and years now, Overwatch League is not something special because Overwatch the game is an amazing sport. It's so much better than every other game. I mean, you can make arguments that Overwatch is better or worse than some games. It's because of the league structure and the teams and the regionality and the fact that they're trying to do something bigger than that. They're trying to be more like a traditional sports league. They're trying to do something else. It's not Overwatch the game itself that makes Overwatch League such a special thing. It's because of the things around it. And if you're not embracing those other things, I think you're just missing the point as an organization.
Yeah, stop being amazed by the visuals of the league, and really, like, people need to be tweeting Overwatch League and talking to them about this and telling them they want transparency, because without that, we're never going to get it. And it is going to be, before long, a big detriment to the league if we don't have it. It's going to cost fan interaction. It's, you know, their depth of involvement is going to deteriorate when players leave completely surprisingly. And like, listen, if Surefour decides he doesn't want to play for the LA Valiant next year, they haven't announced how long as Gladiators, and you know, he wants to go somewhere else, then the team can also like save face a little bit. Like, well, we tried to re-sign him, it just didn't work out. It almost like looks like the player left you, right? And now it's just, well, what are you doing? Because your whole roster reset, and people just they're not talking about contract lengths. People should have been re-signing players they want to keep around in their organization for a long time already. It's things are going to get weird, and because of the lack of transparency, it's going to get worse, not better, at least as far as this is concerned. So be proactive about it, or at least when you do start getting upset about it, remember that we had this conversation, remember that we were talking about this, and be active. You can post on Reddit just like everybody else. It's a cesspool because anybody can post there. Go jump in, okay? Or go to Twitter, go to Facebook, wherever Overwatch League is posting, leave a comment, let them know. We need transparency. This isn't okay. How am I supposed to buy merchandise for players and teams when I have no idea how long they're going to be with this organization, when announcements don't have meaning, when players retire, and it's just irrelevant. It drives me nuts, and it should drive everybody else nuts too. If you are a traditional sports fan, go look at your favorite team's Twitter account. Scroll back to the last time somebody was announced. Look at all the information you've got. And if you were really invested in that team, or you probably are if you're going back to check on it, don't you use that information to evaluate whether or not you think the general manager of your team is doing a good job? Doesn't that inform you as a fan? Don't you think that's baked into your ticket prices, into your jersey sales, and all that money you pay for the merchandise, for the teams, to support them financially? You're owed this. You are owed this information, and we're not getting it right now as fans.
Yeah, and I mean, one last thing to touch on is that Overwatch League is not going to have the monopoly on team-based esports or regional-based esports for very long, if at all. I mean, we have the Call of Duty League coming up, which is still Activision, so they're going to be very mindful of not stepping on their own feet with that, or stepping on their own feet with that. But League of Legends starts to come around, Dota, whatever, you know, any of these, you know, AAA studios can come in and do this if they want. You know, Overwatch League, just because Overwatch League did it first doesn't mean it's going to be around. It means that the onus is on them to do it right, and to do it right for as long as they can, because people can just copy at some point. So, all right, we'll end that rant there. And believe me, I'm sure it's going to come back at some point, because such is
every stage so far. Let's put a clock on it. At the end of the stage 4, I'll be on it.
Yep. Let's start the timer now. Been 0 days since we ranted about transparency in the Overwatch League. But let's move on here, and let's get to...
It's tournament talk.
We had some good old-fashioned
Playoffs?
this week. Stage 3,
Playoffs?
to be exact. I love that. Playoffs might be my favorite soundbite. But let's start it off, and let's do this day by day here, and just talk about what happened. So start off on Thursday. We had the Vancouver Titans win 3-0 versus the Houston Outlaws, and the Shanghai Dragons beat the New York Excelsior 3-1. Of course, these are first to 3, not the normal. So we had the 3-0. There was no tie. It was just a straight 3-0 for the Houston Outlaws. But I mean, we saw Vancouver look pretty good against Houston. Any comments here, Death, on that game, Houston versus Vancouver?
It was really just a matter of tiers as far as these teams are concerned.
Yeah.
It was the 2 seed versus the 7 seed, and in this case more so than in the 1 versus 8 seed. Obviously, it was a very big tier difference between the two teams. I thought Houston played decently well. They weren't at their best, obviously. They didn't take a map, but King of the Hill went rough, and from there I was pretty much consigned that it was over from there, because that's their best game mode, and they didn't even take a point on that particular map. So lost 2-0 on Ilios, but 3-2 on Eichenwald. Houston put up a fairly decent attack, didn't quite complete the map, but they were just not able to hold Vancouver. It got within a decent margin of error there when Vancouver actually completed. So yeah, it wasn't the biggest blowout on Eichenwald. And then 3-2 again for Volskaya Industries. Just one, 3 maps won handily by Vancouver. Houston did at least show up in the second 2. Is really the only point there. But I said this was the least likely of the upsets to occur, and it looked that way on the stage when it actually played out. I said Linkser needed to have one of his better days. That really wasn't what happened. So, but eyes forward. I mean, it's an exhibition match. It didn't matter. Right. So get everything in order. It's not like winning there helped Vancouver too much in the grand scheme of things either. Right. So, Vancouver right now is the better team. They're able to bring Stitch in, and he's just makes that team look really, really strong on the DPS side of things. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, what these two teams will look like after Rollock is enforced. But for right now, we know when Vancouver has the ability to run goats, which I don't even think they did that much of in this match. But kind of as a fallback, Houston just kind of really struggled to make much of a dent and disrupt what Vancouver was trying to do. So.
Yeah, it was definitely, I agree. Difference in tiers here, and Vancouver did look good pretty much throughout the, we'll talk more about them in a bit, but the real story here is the Shanghai Dragons, who came out and won 3-1 versus the New York Excelsior. And I mean, as much as the meme of NYXL chokes in the playoffs and they can't win, I mean, the rest of the weekend kind of played it out, but Shanghai just looks pretty darn good right now. You get Ding and DM playing some DPS heroes, and all of a sudden they're looking pretty scary. I mean, you have a proven tank in Gamsu as well. I mean, you take the jersey and the team history of Shanghai Dragons off of this collection of players, and if you said that all these players came from Runaway, everyone would be saying that these guys are going to win the whole season from the beginning of the season. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I will say too, I thought New York underperformed. I didn't think they really lived up to what they were able to do throughout the stage.
Sure, they didn't play SBB.
Yeah, they did. They basically changed their roster, and I don't know why they really did that, to be perfectly honest with you. It was a bit perplexing. It was probably to try to answer maybe what Shanghai was doing, but I go into these stage playoffs assuming New York's not super interested in them. And if they're looking at a 2-2-2 Rollock in stage 4, and an off tank that hasn't played in quite some time. Maybe they just wanted to put him out there in an exhibition match and get the team used to playing with him again, and put them in a situation to be looking forward. So I do look at this match. I predicted Shanghai to win it because I didn't expect New York to bench SBB and change their roster up going into it, things like that. But I don't think New York thinks of these stage playoffs as something they have to win. I think they were looking forward. I think they were scrimming, planning, and preparing for the stage 4 meta. And not that this completely explains away. This was 3-1. This was not particularly close. You've got the 2-0 on Oasis. You've got the 3-1 on Watch Point. So New York couldn't even finish the second point on Gibraltar there. So it wasn't the best showing from New York, definitely. But this, to me, wasn't a playoff choke. This was a team that underperformed, and there's a difference in that. And you can, if you want my opinion and the opinions of others, I think Kick Tripod actually had a tweet up about what's the difference between the two of them. So I commented on that. I know a couple other people did. If you're kind of curious what's the difference and you think I'm splitting hairs, you can check that out and see it's more about the single moments with a choke, right? Stage 1 for New York felt more like a choking, and Nene's missed grab, just kind of throwing it into the dirt. And I don't care what his intentions were, Taimu, I'm sorry, he choked and whiffed his grab.
But he choked. It doesn't mean what he did was wrong. He choked.
Right. This was the team showing up and playing poorly for an entire set, at least to their own standards. And props to Shanghai. You hit the nail on the head. Diem and Ding look really, really good. They're top tier DPS players in this league. I think they might be a little overblown as far as who's the absolute best in the league. I think there are a couple other teams that might want to put Carpe and EQO back on DPS heroes in order for that to really be settled. You might have San Francisco, who wants to actually field Architect and Striker for more than one map in the finals of the stage playoffs. Before I'm ready to crown anybody the specific DPS duo, let's see the best DPS players back on the stage again for everybody. But there's no doubt these guys looked great, and they were integral to the success of the Shanghai Dragons, not just in this match, but all week.
Yeah, the only thing that I would call a choke would be whatever the reason that SBB didn't even play. Come on. Maybe he was literally choking on a piece of food and he couldn't come to play. He was physically choking, which caused the choke. Okay, I'm done with that. Because NYXL losing to Shanghai was only a major blow to me emotionally and personally for only until Saturday, because you don't talk about NYXL losing in the playoffs when Vancouver also loses in the playoffs. But we'll talk about that in a second. We saw San Francisco Shock beat the Seoul Dynasty 3-1 on Friday. We saw the LA Valiant complete just an intense match against Hangzhou Spark. Ended up pulling it out 3-2 in the end. Let's talk about San Francisco Seoul. What did you think, Death?
I just think Seoul is just impossible to pin down. What they're doing with their roster, it's the same story to me. It's just a different day. I'm looking to see how consistent it was, at least throughout the course of this game, or this match, I should say. And the first couple maps were the same. I'm looking to see. It was a while ago. I've forgotten. Yeah, it looks like they stayed pretty consistent, but we're talking about Toby spent a good portion of the stage playing, and yet Jexy was in for them. Fitz was in. Where's Munchkin? Munchkin looked good to me in these past metas, and he's a reliable DPS player for this organization. And in fairness to Fitz, I haven't gotten to see him play in a regular meta and see him compare to Munchkin, but it's the switching back and forth that I mind, not necessarily the choice between one of them. So yeah, we're going to see this come the regular season playoffs too at the end of the year, right? This isn't going to go away. Seoul has a deep roster full of talented players, and they're mismanaging it. And the fact that it's there and as talented as it is means they're going to get wins. They're going to beat the teams they should beat, kind of a thing. But are they ever going to level up and beat a San Francisco in a playoff environment? I don't know. I haven't seen it, so probably not. They got the win against New York,
right?
But
Stage 1.
you've got to extend it multiple. Like you have to win more than once in the playoffs in order to get where you're trying to go. So
Right.
even if Seoul's able to get a win, which I would pencil them in as kind of a one and done team come the regular playoffs because of how they run things, but it'll depend on the matchup and what roster they go with and what the meta is, obviously. So I'm not going to commit to that yet, but yeah, they're just doing things wrong. They're backwards right now. They're still in a stage 1 mentality, and we're going into stage 4, and that costs them in the big matches. But I'll say as well, they threw their tiebreaker match last stage, or the stage when the tiebreakers happened after stage 1. They just got real. They're another team that's weird about stage playoffs. So I don't know that we should read too much into it, but it's what I expected. So I maybe it's confirmation bias, and I thought I would see this and I saw it, so I'm assuming everything's right. But
I mean,
I've not seen anything from them. Where are the surprise results, right? Like, are they a better team than Houston? Yeah, but Houston was able to beat San Francisco, and maybe they just caught lightning in a bottle. But when does Seoul catch lightning in a bottle? When does it happen? I haven't seen it.
They don't keep the same bottle around long enough. They don't keep it open long enough to actually catch it. I mean, it's only at some point, yes, it's confirmation bias, but is it confirmation bias when we've been saying this for over a year and it happens week over week over week? I don't know if it's
at some point it's just confirmation.
Yeah, at some point it's just confirmation. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like all Seoul things aside, like San Francisco's still San Francisco, and they still look good. Regardless of the end result of the entire stage playoffs here. But LA Valiant versus Hangzhou Spark, I think just an amazing match. This was one that I think Bren was calling like match of the season or something, or like some sort of crazy claim. But I mean, it really was just a back and forth, like a slobber knocker. Like it was a fantastic match to watch. Definitely. I mean, I think more so than almost any other match. I mean, I would go back and watch the finals here again, but any other match in this playoffs, definitely go back and watch LA Valiant versus Hangzhou Spark. But Death, what were your what did you get from this one?
This one was a knockdown drag out. There's just really no other way around it here. These were two of the teams that were performing at their best going into this matchup, and they went the full distance. So like you said, absolutely one to watch in its entirety. The Valiant are a team that is very difficult for me to project going forward. I feel like I'm more confident and I like their roster more if you're involving Space in the conversation and you're kind of bringing him back in. But again, we've not seen them succeed with that kind of a roster configuration yet this year, so you do have to worry a little bit about them going backwards. But yeah, this one was back and forth. The Valiant take the first map on Ilios. Hangzhou takes the next two. They just need one map to solidify things, get the win. But the Valiant get the 3-2 victory on Havana. It is no small accomplishment to finish that map. Although I guess you can get 3 points without finishing it if the other team had 2, right? So maybe Hangzhou just attacked first and didn't complete. But my memory is it was at bare minimum like the very end of the map. That they needed to get just the last meter or two. And then Valiant came in clutch and won 2-0 on Oasis. So yeah, so far to me, the Valiant look like a team that isn't fazed by the big moment and a team that is trying to squeak their way into the playoffs and make their way into play-ins, and they need to climb to do it in the end. That's the team you bet on. The team that knuckles down and facing elimination comes back and rattles off 2 map wins. That's exactly what you want to see from them. So they're continuing to integrate fact fiction a little bit more. So I don't think he's at his absolute peak potential for what he's going to be able to do for this team. We've talked about how much we like him and how we thought he would improve this team. Maybe we didn't expect quite this much, but we did. Actually, I'm going to walk that back. I don't know that we thought he would improve this team because he was coming in to replace Fate, who obviously had some big shoes to fill, but he's filled them and he's doing some work here. So this team looks good. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. The arrival of Shaxx onto the roster really it was around the same time this team started to figure things out, right? But was it the 3 DPS meta that they succeeded at? Was it really his Sombra play that made the difference? It's a matter of, now they're going to be forced to play that tank player, and you're going to play space over Shax. So how do they manage their 3 DPS players at this point? It's definitely an interesting question going forward. One you don't really have about Hangzhou, kind of despite the disappointing early exit here. I think they were one of the teams that really wanted to be the Shanghai Dragons this stage and to close out the win, and just not able to do it. But they're in a very good spot as well going forward. We're not questioning what their roster is going to look like. We're just, are they going to maintain this level of play that they've had, this consistency that they've been able to pull off, because they've been great so far with this roster.
Yeah, Hangzhou and LA for that matter, really looking, they can really make a run here in this last stage for some end of season playoff. At least plans, I think, for LA is within grasp. And really, I mean, LA and to an extent Houston as well, really kind of they both had Mr. 0-7 on their team and came back, in a later stage and got to a stage playoffs and are still within striking distance of at least a play-ins match for end of season. So I think, if chat is correct, which who knows, Washington and probably Florida are, I think we can pretty safely say they're out of contention for end of season, even play-ins.
I'm all but positive. I mean, they're.
If you think about it, they go 7-0. That only cancels out one of their bad stages.
Yeah, they're 2-19. They're not.
Yeah, it's not happening. It's not even close to happening.
9-19. Yeah, they're done, officially eliminated.
But almost any other team, I think, still has at least a chance.
Well, look at the specifics of it. You've got the Toronto Defiant in 18th place right now. They are 2 games back from 12th. Yeah. Then you've got Boston Boston, Paris, Houston, and the Valiant all 1 game back from 12th. And then you've got Chengdu and Guangzhou tied for 12th place right now. And that tiebreaker, we're super draw, Blevins. It's back, baby. And it's when we want.
But they're going to ruin it again because they're just going to flip 5 coins, right?
It's where we want there to be convoluted tiebreakers and forced play-ins, because it's for a playoffs that actually matters.
Right.
So yeah, this that would be a spot where it's good. But more importantly to me, looking at who's on the outside looking in, it's looking at who's there with the potential to fall. Chengdu can't run their 3 DPS ball anymore, right? They've not even been particularly good at it. They're a sub 500 team, and they're going to be forced into a more traditional metagame, so you have to think that hurts them. What even are the Atlanta Reign right now? We've seen them beat New York twice. We've seen them go 0-5 to start a stage. Yep. We've seen them sweep their home series. I literally don't know what to expect from the Atlanta Reign going into a 2-2-2 meta. You got the Dallas Fuel and Free Fall. We don't know for sure what's going on with their main tank, OGE, who's just not playing for them lately. So that's definitely concerning if you're a Dallas fan. You've got the Philadelphia Fusion. Their inconsistency is legendary. Their main tank play is not. And these are teams that have the potential to work their way out. Now, Philly's probably safe. They're 12-9 at the moment, at least they've never been so bad that they would fall that far, but it's certainly possible. They've proven they can lose to anybody if Boombox is sick and can't play that week. So it can happen, and it can happen fast. Also, notably, their backups are in Korea right now playing in contenders. So that's where their 2-way guys are. So it could be rough for them if something unforeseen happens. But I think you have to look at Dallas and Atlanta and Chengdu as teams whose spots are very open. And then you've got Boston making moves we talked about a little earlier at the top of the rant. If you listened, it was the blink of an eye, but it was there with them adding Stellar.
So I was on the team. Now what they did
they're making moves. Guangzhou, rumors, we're not talking about it, they're rumored to be making some moves as well. We'll probably be announcing They will
Please don't
probably be
true.
announcing that next week, assuming it's accurate. A couple of well-known players may be added to Guangzhou before stage 4. And yeah, and you know, Atlanta and Dallas are two teams that could very easily fall out. And for what it's worth, Guangzhou making moves doesn't mean they're going to work or they're going to make,
Right.
you know, improve the team leaps and bounds. It's a little late. You know, we talk about not wanting to make roster moves because of what it does to your ability to achieve your kind of maximum potential. Same goes for adding players going into stage 4, right? If you wanted to make moves to make a deep run, you probably should have done it at the end of last stage at the absolute latest. So yeah, there's hungry teams 1 or 2 games out of the play-in race right now.
Yeah.
And notably the two that I think people give the best chance to wear green uniforms. So hopefully both of them get in. But yeah, it's going to be a hell of a race coming up in the
And I mean, I think a lot of these teams control their own fate in a lot of ways. I don't know what the schedules look like exactly.
I mean, Florida does.
They control other people's fates in some.
No, they control their own fate. They signed him. He was under contract.
That's getting a shame bell.
Shame.
Yeah, you really should have caught that joke right
Yeah,
now.
man, that shame. That's a shared shame bell there. Me for not getting it, and you for making the joke. But
I stand by it.
I'm sure you do. Let's move here to Saturday, where we saw the Shanghai Dragons beat the Vancouver Titans 4-1. I mean, we've already talked about it. Ding and DM just dominant in a lot of ways. The triple D domination.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot more to say about that. To be perfectly honest with you, I lost my tab here. Which is the match we're talking about again? Then?
We are talking about Shanghai Dragons versus Vancouver Titans.
Oh yeah, I mean possibly the biggest upset of the weekend. Yeah, probably.
Maybe the biggest upset. Period.
Maybe the biggest, but no, it can't be the biggest because I mean,
we saw Houston beat
Houston beat San Francisco. What were each of those teams, right? I think that's got to be the biggest one. But I just am stalling basically to try to get the. Match.
Technically, Shanghai versus New York was a bigger upset than Shanghai versus Vancouver in terms of seeding,
for this stage, yeah. So, yeah, I mean Vancouver. I don't know. They're tough to exactly pin down what exactly their plan was going into the stage playoffs. They're another one of those teams, but we've not really seen them take a stage playoffs off in the past. It did seem like they were really trying to win them in the past. So benefit of the doubt on this one, and you don't want to take anything away from what Shanghai was able to do. Vancouver only wins on Numbani, which is their best map. They haven't lost it since like 2016 or 17 or something like that as a team. So they were able to hold serve on that one, but losing on Ilios and Volskaya and Havana, they got full held on Havana. So Shanghai had momentum. We talk about sports magic, and I don't know that we need to look too much deeper than that to really analyze what happened in this one. Diem and Ding are unlocked a little bit. I believe we saw a decent amount of Youngjin in this match as well. He comes in and he played some Doomfist for him when they wanted to go into triple DPS. He looked really good there. So they're a very versatile team. You know, they're able to make one roster swap and have a completely different look, and that's something that's really valuable in this kind of a meta. Their Sombra play is really, really strong, which is super, super important in this meta. And I just think that, honestly, to me, the key in this match was the Sombra play. I think that it was a little bit too smothering for the Titans to really be able to react to it. And by the time map 4 rolled around, it was all Shanghai from there. There was a little life in map 5 from Vancouver, but Shanghai able to take Oasis to finish it out. So yeah, props to the DPS players on Shanghai. And I think Gamzu's going pretty unnoticed so far throughout this run. People are giving a lot of credit to what the DPS players are able to do, but you don't have to look farther than the Washington Justice to know what a talented DPS line does behind a terrible front line. And I think Gamzu did a great job really solidifying the tank position for the Shanghai Dragons. He's not been a world beater, but he hasn't had to be a world beater. Right. And you know, he's able to just be solid, be consistent, be a reliable player for this team, and it makes all the difference.
I don't want to commit you to anything necessarily, but maybe a VOD review of some Shanghai Dragons in playoffs.
I've been really meaning to do it, so I will say very probably to pull to do an old callback.
Yes, the old probably. Tweet at HMP Deathblow on Twitter and tell him to do VOD review and tell him what match you want him to do, because I personally want to see it, but I know that just me nagging him isn't going to be enough, so we need more people to do it.
That's happening always, and that
tag
him doesn't exactly move mountains with me.
Right. He's just so used to it. He's completely unaffected. Tag him in Discord, tweet at him, let us know what match. Choose one from the playoffs. I want to see it. I mean, honestly, I think a good candidate would be LA versus Hangzhou, just so that you get to watch that match again. I mean, that's going to be the most entertaining one to watch. But I mean, even Shanghai versus San Francisco would be a good one. But
the finals too was phenomenal.
Yeah, well, which we'll get to in just a second. But I mean, before the finals happened, we had to see San Francisco really take out their frustrations on LA Valiant here with the 4-0 victory. I mean, Vancouver 3-0'd Houston, but the only clean sweep besides that in the entire playoffs. Really kind of goes to show how close these playoffs were, and the number of upsets is even more. But is there anything to talk about here in LA versus San Fran, or should we just go to the finals?
Well, I'll say this. I think San Francisco's kind of unique take on GOATs and what they've landed on and running it obviously served them very well here. I think it caught the Valiant off guard a little bit. Their propensity to play the Baptiste in GOATs over the Brig, I think makes a really interesting element. And, they're able to put a player of Rascal's just raw mechanical talent on it. So now you've got a healer being played by a very skilled DPS player. So I think he's really able to min-max on that hero better than the Valiant were really prepared for. So I thought that was a big factor in the win. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Valiant, they were able to beat Vancouver earlier in the stage. So when they get 4-0'd like this, even if it's against San Francisco, that to me says they just didn't show up. There was just a degree to which they phoned it in a little bit, and it just didn't quite work out for them. But hey, at least it happened in the stage playoffs and not in something, they're in a tight race. We talked about it already. They're in a very tight race for the play-ins, and it's better that this happened here than it happening anywhere else, basically. At least you can kind of hang your hat on that. But J-Man in chat here on Twitch is saying the crowd was very sad. It's a little rough to have happen in front of your home crowd, but
they also in front of your home crowd,
the magic of the home crowd it's not really there.
Did not happen. But they also had the hero arc already built in. Like they had that 3-2 versus Hangzhou. Like they were on the brink of losing, and they come back and do it. Like it was the closest match that thus far. Like they could have been the protagonist in this story, and well, turns out sometimes the protagonist just gets dunked on the next match. But don't worry, they were avenged as we saw the Shanghai Dragons become the Stage 3 champions as history was made 4-3 versus the San Francisco Shock. I mean, it sounds like we're beating a dead horse here, but DM and Ding were creating many, many dead Shock horses in this match.
Yeah. I do have two beefs with this match in particular. As great as it was, it didn't feel great when you were watching it until the very end, right? Because Shanghai gets out to the super fast 3-0 start. And I want to point out that as the higher seed, the San Francisco Shock picked the first map. Then as the losers of the first map, they picked the second map. And as the losers of the third map, they picked the fourth map. But that means they lost 3 maps in a row that they picked, before they won one that they picked. And that was Havana. So then the Shanghai Dragons get to pick 2 maps or 3 maps in a row, and they lose 2 of those. So it was like teams just repeatedly not holding serve, right? Like just giving up their serve, to use the tennis analogy, back to back to back. And also, if you're going to win 3 maps in a row, and you're not going to reverse sweep, why didn't you just lose the fourth map, Forehead? It's just...
Right, because I'm sure that's what they thought. They're like,
I'm not
the
blaming
producers
their
are in our ear
mentality.
saying that we had to throw, so
I'm not blaming their mentality,
No,
but I mentally divested myself from that match after it was 3-0 for Shanghai.
Right.
I was like phoning in watching it, and then it was like, oh, they won a map. Okay, but I mean, it's probably. And then they won another map, and it's like, do I need to pay attention to this? Then they win the third map. You're like, all right, last map. I'm all in again. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and so I feel like I didn't even get to watch San Francisco win because of the way it went down. But it was, I mean, honestly, when you know, kind of, if I would have just paid attention the whole time, it would have been every bit as good as Hangzhou versus the Valiant. But I did check out a little bit for the San Francisco rally. But from what I saw, Shanghai definitely, like, we are beating a dead horse, but they really deserve all the credit that we can give them, because Diem and Ding were phenomenal. Gamzu again, just a really solid player and a performer for this team. And I thought, specifically in the finals as well, I thought the support line showed for Shanghai better than they had in the past. San Francisco is really adept at kind of disrupting things and getting into your back line. And you know, the other thing I want to mention is San Francisco. You completely shook up your roster for the first map. They played Smurf, they played Striker, they played Architect, and then Choi Hyo Bin, Violet, and Moth. So they kind of answered it a little bit on the broadcast. They said they've been struggling with the DPS compositions. They wanted to try to catch them off guard. It is a heck of a time to make a decision to make a move like that.
That's whew.
I'm even of the school where, like, oh, they're exhibition matches, who cares? Like, that's an argument to, like, from map 1 of the playoffs to play them and never take them out no matter what happens.
Right.
Then maybe do that, prep them for next stage. But this was just one map in the middle of the at the very beginning of the finals. Right. What is going on here? It was very, very confusing, and I think it really contributed to the way that started. Right, just the 3-0 run. It really disrupted their rhythm. Shanghai was then in their rhythm and in full game speed by the time the Shock roster came back out. And maybe if they don't make that move in the first map, maybe they win the first map, or maybe they win the second or the third because their guys aren't warming up or playing in their first game of the day, while the other team's already ready to go. So you can look back at these things and wonder what if until you're blue in the face, but it was definitely a very perplexing decision for them to do that in the first map of this match. But at least it would have looked worse if they never rallied, though, right? If they never came back and just got 4-0'd and like just pulled a soul and switched everybody for no reason, and like that would have been confusing. But I don't know. It was props to Shanghai. They really did. And in this match, Koma and Luffy I thought were a bit more standouts than they had been in matches past. But,
one thing that I don't know why I've never thought about it before, but I was thinking about it in this stage playoff specifically, is who actually makes the call of what map they choose? Is the GM? Do we know? Is it a player on the team? Like, is it a coach? I'm just kind of curious, like, who makes the call of, like, okay, we lost, we have to pick the map. Who's phoning that in, and who, like, is there a discussion with it? Like, because like the players are still out there. I'm curious who makes that call, because
is this just an effort on your part to bring this full circle to get me yelling about transparency?
No, I mean, it's related to that, sure. It is related to that, but I was just thinking about that independent of the transparency thing this weekend, because I'm like, it almost gives a view into, like, what the teams are doing, like, how much are they reviewing tape and how much are they, because, like, San Francisco coming out with that weird comp to try to, like, catch Shanghai off guard. It's like, okay, well, they know what Shanghai's going to be doing. They've got 2 matches of tape on Shanghai, so they're making a call to play against specifically Shanghai. It didn't work, and then it also leads me to believe that, like, those people are making the call to pick the map, and that didn't work either. So, like, I'm just curious.
We got a little insight last, I don't know, was it earlier, maybe stage 2 or something like that, where like Houston played Banny for a map because they misreported their lineup. Like, I think they have to submit their lineup every single map at like a predetermined time. And I'm guessing in this situation, there's a line on that sheet of paper that needs to be handed in that says what map, if you're the losing team, what map. But since it is the losing team that picks, maybe it is different because you have to know the result there, right? But the first match could be different, or the first map could be different because the high seed can pick it, and we don't know when in advance, how far in advance they pick that.
Right. So they probably pick everything. They probably determine their entire play out before the match is played.
Yeah, I assume they have X number of minutes or X number amount of time before or after the map ends, right? Like map 1 ends and they have 2 minutes to submit rosters and map for map.
Now, do you think that that's the case, or that they're like, okay, map 1, you're the higher seed, pick map 2. If you lose map 1, what would you pick? Map 3, if you lose map 3 or map 2, what would you pick?
I would be surprised if it's that, but maybe not surprised at the same time. I'll say this: I think it should be, because as a coach, you should be able to react to the flow of the game, right? Like,
that's
if
what
somebody if somebody's Farah is looking particularly bad today, I might want to take that team to a Farah map when mine's looking particularly good. So, I'll say that's what I would want. It seems very convoluted and weird to be like, okay, if you win, what do you want? But maybe they do just say, hey, rank the control maps you want to play, and then if you're up, we'll take the highest seeded control map on your list that hasn't been picked yet. That could certainly be it, but I would think it's a little bit more in the moment, because there's that break in between matches or maps and stuff. So
yeah, J-Man brings up sometimes the breaks between the maps are longer, so that, so that would make sense. Okay, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm just curious, really.
And there's always the 2 minutes minimum, right? So then, like, you do the 2 minutes with the timers up, and then if the team uses their full time and you need a second, then you can fudge it with the casters, kind of doing some some overtalk kind of a thing. So that's the way I would guess it happens, but I obviously don't.
No idea, but maybe someday we'll get that information. But that was it, guys. That was stage 3. I think arguably one of, if not the best stage of Overwatch League we've seen so far, in terms of upsets, excitement, moving into the end of the season potential. I don't know.
It's hard to argue with, but I don't know if we'd be thinking that if we didn't come into the stage being down about goats again. And
right.
All the boost of not having goats again and stuff.
Right. That's the biggest thing about it too, is that we were partially, at least somewhat, in this category, or at least commenting on it, that like this stage might just be a snoozer. I mean, I've talked to people who were like, yeah, I don't know how much. I mean, I'm going to be paying attention, but I don't know if I'm going to be watching every single game and going through it with a fine-tooth comb like I normally do, because nothing's changing. So this meta is probably going to be the same as last time, and we're bored of that. Well, surprise, we had the best stage ever. I think it just, my gut says yes. I can't think of another. I mean, removing oh, this is so exciting to see the very first stage of Overwatch played.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Shanghai completing the kind of rally, the worst to first storyline is obviously great. So great, we're not even making fun of the fact that somebody cried on the broadcast. Because
now it actually
low-key a little deserved this time, and also he was wearing a Shanghai Dragons jersey, so props on you. At least you declared the team beforehand. But and then you had 2 teams coming from the literal dumpster to the stage playoffs with 5-2 records, with the Valiant and the Outlaws. The toppling of giants was a theme in this stage, which is always great to see, with San Fran falling to Houston, with the Valiant overtaking Vancouver, and obviously Shanghai taking out everybody in the end, right, in their path through the playoffs. So great time. I mean, the 8 seed making the run through whoever the hardest opponent possible was by record is always a ride and a great time. So
they literally beat 1, 2, 3. They beat
I was
1-2.
Yeah, I thought so, but I already closed the schedule to confirm it. So I'm
Well, I
glad
mean,
you kept it
it's
open.
San Francisco. I mean, it's San Francisco, Vancouver, and New York. They beat 1-2-3. Like
Yeah.
that we don't need to look it up. We know that that's the case. Like they did something. I think, if nothing else, their conversation. I think this is the time. The 0-40 discussion's over. I'm done with it. I mean, I think a lot of people have been, but
they're full on. They buried the meme.
They completed that arc and they're moving on to a new thing. Now they're okay. Get your ears ready, folks. Now they're Trogdor. They're burninating the countryside, and they burninated every single peasant, including the NYXL, the Vancouver Titans, and the San Francisco Shock. I mean,
guys, he just called the NYXL peasants.
Yeah, they are filthy peasants in the playoffs, in the stage playoffs of this season. Well, I mean, it's hard to argue against that. I mean, I just hope that they get their act together for this next stage.
Take a lesson from Houston. You can't be playoff peasants if you don't make the playoffs.
True.
Think about it.
True, and you also don't care that much about NYXL losing in the playoffs when both San Francisco and Vancouver also lose in the playoffs too. So I'm not. We're getting word that the Trogdor wasn't too loud, so I'm gonna have to turn it up next time. But that's it, guys. That was the stage. I hope you guys had fun. I sure did. I'll say it. Best stage of Overwatch League yet, and I think not only that. I think it sets up this stage 4 to be really good. I mean, I'm still not sure where I fall on the 2-2-2 roll lock, but it doesn't matter if it's happening. If it's happening, it doesn't matter what I think about it. We just have to deal with it. But once
upon a time, I was morally opposed to hero limits, and now like has been said a lot. We look back on that time and laugh about how silly we were, and I think we'll likely be doing that again after the roll lock is implemented. But I agree too. I think context is everything, and I think stage 3 being as good as it was, having the storylines that it was, the resurging teams to make the play-in race more interesting. I think stage 4 we're very easily looking at a more fun, maybe even more competitive environment and setup here. So I'm excited.
We have matches starting in the first week that are going to matter. I remember beginning of stage 3, like everyone was down. Oh, well, okay, it's going to be goats again. Oh, well, I mean, we don't need to start doing the math for our team, whether they're in the playoffs or not. Right? It's whatever. We're already, every map is counting here. Every match is counting. Every map is counting. There's 6 or 7 teams competing for top 12 right now? Maybe more than that. I don't know. But that's going to be it, guys.
18 and up is still alive. So
yeah, 18 to 12, all shooting for 18 to probably
9.
8 to 9. So 9 teams competing for 3 spots. So all those matches are going to count, especially the heads-up matches. But that's going to be it, guys. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you check out the show on all the social platforms for High Noon Podcast everywhere. iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, Spotify as well. And make sure you follow us there. But guys, for Deathblow, I'm the Blevins, and remember, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world.